Okay, final lesson of our first unit, everybody. This is going to be applying our exponent laws. These are going to be much more advanced questions, but if you just look at it piece by piece using your laws, they're going to get simpler and more simpler, and there's a few different ways to approach them, different pathways, but they all result in the same resulting answer. So let's just review these laws really fast because we've been working with them a lot. Our zero exponent law is anything raised to the power of zero is one. We learned about negative exponents last time, and we could write this over one and this over one, but basically what's happening is it moves the power and the negative goes away. So if it's on top, it goes to the bottom and it becomes positive, and vice versa. On the bottom, moves to the top. This also is applicable to fractions, so we can see that if we have a fraction raised to a negative exponent, all we have to do is flip the top and bottom and it becomes a positive exponent. The only thing missing here actually is I want you to add something is fractional exponents. Okay, because we will have to deal with these, of course, in this unit. And the idea is that anything raised to the power of m over n, our hats on top, boots on the bottom, can be converted to a radical. And this was our favorite form where we put our boots at the door, okay? And then we put it all in brackets and put our hat up top. Okay, so that's a really common one that we're going to use too. And then all the ones we've basically had from Math 9. Okay, so we had our product law where we add exponents. Then we had the quotient where we subtract. Again, make sure you recognize that this can also be written and more commonly as fraction notation. Power of a power, and then we could have a power of a product and a power of a quotient. Okay, and all those we've been working with a lot, and you should feel pretty comfortable with. Now, a lot of the stuff had letters, but what if we have numbers? It's always important to simplify first, then evaluate. Do not start multiplying these numbers. They can get really ugly. If we have the same base of 0.3 and 0.3, let's use our laws first to simplify. And so what would we get here? Well, I have 0.3 raised to the negative 3 and raised to the 5. So we know we need to add exponents. And so negative 3 plus 5 is going to give me positive 2 overall. So this is going to be simplified to 0.3 to the 2 or squared. So that's simplified. Okay, that's the simplified step. And now we're just going to evaluate that. So 0.3 multiplied by 0.3. And because we have two decimals, it's going to move the decimal place over twice to get 0.09. And that's what we call evaluated. So notice we simplified first, then evaluated. Over here, let's use we're going to use a couple of our laws. So right now I have negative 3 over 2 is the base. So I know it's a fraction, but think of it as a base, like as if it was x. And that's raised to the negative 4, then to the 2. So we know we got to multiply those exponents. And likewise here, we're going to multiply those exponents. So let's write that simplified. We have negative 3 over 2 raised to the power of negative 4 times 2, which is negative 8. And that's being multiplied by the same base again, negative 3 over 2 of 2 times 3, which is 6. Now we know we have to add exponents here. Negative 8 plus 6 is going to give me negative 2. So we have negative 3 over 2 raised to the power of negative 2. And now we can further simplify by using that negative. We'll keep, so that's going to flip our fraction. So now the 2 goes up top, the 3 goes on the bottom, just keeping the negative out in front. And that's raised now to the positive squared. And finally, we can square everything inside here. We're going to square the 2, square the negative, square the 3, and we're going to get a positive 4 over 9. Okay? That's fully simplified. And then our last step was the actual evaluation step. So let's try some of these. These are about as tough as they're going to get. You'll see a couple more challenging ones. but we're going to work through these, and a couple of them, I'm going to show you a few different pathways and a few key things to look out for so that you don't make common mistakes with our exponents. So our goal, remember, is we never leave anything with a negative exponent in the end. They're very hard to work with as a negative. We convert everything to positive. So in this first one here, looks like we have a bunch of x's and y's being multiplied. So we're going to use our power law. So I'm going to take my x's, okay, and I have 3 plus 2 to get 5. So I'm going to have x to the 5. And then my y's here, let's change colors. I have a 2 and a negative 4, so I'm just going to go 2 plus negative 4 is going to give me a negative 2 overall, y to the negative 2. Okay, and remember it said no negative exponents, so I'm going to have to take this y to the negative 2 and move it down below. So I put this all over 1, and I'm going to take this piece and shift it down, and it becomes positive. So x to the 5 stays up top, and the y goes down to the bottom as positive y squared. And we're done. Fully simplified and no negative exponents. Moving on over here, we have a negative 10 over 2. We have some a's and some b's, so we're going to be using our quotient law here in division. So let's see, how do we want to do this? Well, first, let's deal with this negative 10 over 2. Well, 10 divided by 2 is 5, and because the negative, we're going to have a negative 5 out in front. And now let's deal with this a to the 5 and a to the 2. So we're going to subtract those exponents. So a to the 5 minus 2 is 3. And this was where it looks a little weird. We have b to the 3 over b to the negative 2. Now, I could have moved this b up top at the very beginning. Absolutely, that's no problem, and get rid of the negative exponent. But I did want to show you this other method because this is going to be b to the 3 subtract negative 2. And we know when we subtract a negative, that's the same as being b to the 3 plus 2. Okay, when we get subtracting a negative is the same as addition. And so now I'm going to have b to the 5. And we're actually all done right there. We have negative 5, a to the 3, b to the 5. Subtracted the a's, subtracted the b's, everything ended up positive. We're done. Moving on to C. So in C here, we're going to first, I see a 6 over 14. Those don't divide, but they are both divisible by 2. So we're going to divide by 2 and divide that by 2. Okay, so that's going to make those more simple. And we have an x to the 1 on the bottom. So this time I am going to deal with this negative exponent. I could still subtract these, but I know I'm still going to be negative. So to show you what's going on, I have this negative 3 exponent attached to the y. I'm going to move that down below and do this division by 2 in the same step. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. The x to the 4, I'm going to leave it for now. And now down below, 14 divided by 2 is 7. We have an x to the 1. And now the y squared is there, but the y to the 3 has moved down to join. Okay? Now we just got to do one more simplification here. We're going to do 2 steps at once again. The x's are being divided, so I'm going to subtract exponents. So x to the 4 minus 1 is going to give me x to the 3 up top. Okay, and down below I have my 7, and I'm going to combine these two y's, y to the 2, y to the 3, to give me y to the 5. And we're fully simplified. Again, multiple ways to do this. I'm going to show you another way right now really quick, is we could deal with this as a coefficient, the 6 over 14. Divide them both by 2 again. So I'm going to show another method here. Let's change colors. Let's go to green maybe. And we're going to get the 3 over 7. Okay, that's my coefficient. And then all I have to do is deal with my exponents here is x to the 4, x to the 1. So I'm going to subtract those to get x to the 3 up top. Okay. And then down below, if I'm going to subtract these exponents, if I do y to the negative 3 minus 2, I'm going to get y to the negative 5. And of course, that's got to go down below. So we're going to move that right here and shift it down. So this is going to be end up looking the exact same. I'm going to have 3x to the 3 up top, and down below, I've now moved the y to the 5. So two ways we can do this. Remember, this -5 came from -3 minus 2. I was just doing subtraction of the exponents. So whichever way made more sense to you there, I hope that wasn't too confusing, but you got choices. Generally, my go-to is when you have a negative exponent, just move it. Then you don't have to deal with subtracting and adding negatives. It's a little bit easier. So let's try a couple more. Again, here we got two choices. I could get rid of the negative inside the brackets first. I could get rid of the negative on the outside. You choose, or I could multiply the negative in. You got lots of options here. So I'm going to go with the strategy of let's move this negative inside first. I'm going to simplify the inside of my brackets first. So this is what I recommend. If you can, simplify in brackets first. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, this can be written as a fraction, and I'm going to be moving this b to the -2 to the bottom. Okay, so that's going to be my first step here. So inside, I keep the 5a to the 4 up top, and the b squared moves down, becomes positive, and that, remember, is all raised to the -3. Now I'm going to get rid of my negative on the outside, which means I have to flip this whole fraction. So that means I'm going to be, let's make this. So this piece is going to go up, this piece is going to go down, and now I get a new fraction where the b squared's up top, the 5a to the 4 is on the bottom, and that's all being raised now to the +3. And finally, we can do our last step here, which is bring this 3 inside. So I'm going to multiply all of my exponents. Remember, there is a 1 on the 5, so I'm going to multiply that. We're going to multiply all of them in one step here. So b to the 2 times 3 is going to be b to the 6. 5 to the 3, and then a to the 4 times 3 is 12. One last step here is we're going to evaluate that 5 to the 3. So I still have b to the 6 up top. 5 to the 3 is 125, and a to the 12. We have nothing else we combine. B and a are different bases. We have 125 on the bottom. We are done. No negative exponents. Okay, this one we have no negative exponents right now, but again, I want you to simplify in the brackets first. We could bring the 2 in, but if you can simplify inside first before squaring the 2 in, it's going to make your life easier. So let's do that. The 3 over 4 I can't do anything with, so let's keep that as is. But we can do some subtracting. We have an x to the 3 subtracting x to the 5. Okay, and I'm going to show a couple different ways to do this in class. This relatively kind of simple looking question can be done in so many different ways, but I'm going to have x to the 3 subtract 5, which is going to give me x to the -2 is what we get up top. So we have x to the -2. So now we do have a negative exponent, and the y to the 1 stays there. And this is all being squared still. Now we simplified inside, but we still have this negative exponent. So I'm going to move that down below, because remember, simplified means no negative exponents. So let's do that. So I'm going to have 3y up top. And what I'm doing here is taking this x to the -2 and shifting it down below, resulting in 4x squared. And that's all being raised to the 2. Now I can bring the 2 in. I could have done it off the start, but it would have made everything a little bigger and more difficult. And now finally, I think is a good time to square everything. So I'm just going to be bringing this 2 and squaring here. Remember, we have 1s here. We're going to multiply here and here. This is going to look a little messy, but we're going to multiply all of our exponents, distribute it in. So what do we get? We get 3 to the 2, and y to the 1 times 2, which is 2, and because there was a 1 there, I should have written that, and then 4 to the 2 over x to the 2 times 2, which is 4. Let's evaluate now. Do that last. 3 to the 2 is 9, y squared over 16 x to the 4, and we're done. Again, in class, I'm going to show a few more methods, but for this video, you could have multiplied the 2 in first. You could see also that if there's 3 x's on the top and 5 on the bottom, you can cancel 3 of them and leave 2 on the bottom, and then you have no negative exponents. Lots of ways to think of this question. So we'll talk more about that in class. Finally, let's deal with this one. We're going to simplify inside our brackets first. Make our numbers a little more easy. So first, 6 divided by 2 is going to give me a 3. Okay, that divides nicely. This x to the negative 5, I'm going to move down to the bottom. So I'm going to do a few steps at once. So this x to the negative 5 is going to shift down. And I'm going to subtract my y's. So put maybe blue here. I'm going to go 3 subtract 4 to give me negative 1 on my y. So I have a y to the negative 1 up top. Okay, let's shift back to black. And down below, I have, I have nothing down below actually. No, sorry, I moved the x down below. I wanted to go red. Apologies. Let's put x to the 5. So the x has moved down. Now it has a positive exponent. So you can kind of see my goal was to color code where things went there. I hope that looked okay. And then now I can move this y down below. So that's quick. So let's write that. So 3's up top, and now I have x to the 5 and y to the 1, all raised to the negative 2. Now we're going to deal with this negative on the outside now that we've fully simplified the inside of our brackets. So it's kind of just like two questions in one. Simplify inside, and now let's bring the, let's flip everything. So we're going to move the x to the 5, y to the 1 up top. The 3 is going to go down below, and we're going to square it all. And so that just means we're going to square everything inside. So we're going to square here, and square the 3 down below. So it's going to give me a new fraction of x to the 5 times 2 is 10, y to the 1 times 2 is 2, all over 3 squared, which is 9. And that's it. That's all. That's everything in Unit 1 on exponents and powers. Make sure you deal with your practice. Good luck on the quizzes. Corrections you'll do in the journals. We'll see you next time in class.